My wife secretly had an affair with my best friend, and I only found out after losing our $350, $0 family home in a shady divorce. And now she's claiming half of my $500, $0 inheritance from my grandmother as well. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy to get like this, but here I am. The most unexpected thing happened. I found out my wife, Lisa, was cheating on me with my best friend, Jake. And what makes it worse? I only caught her because I lost everything in a shady divorce, and now she's claiming half of my inheritance from my grandma as if she's entitled. I want to tell this story somewhere I can get it all out, so I'm just going to lay it all out here. Lisa and I had been together for over 10 years. We met in college, got married right after, and for the most part I thought we had a good life. Sure, we argued, but every couple does. I worked hard, she worked part-time while going to school, and we managed to buy a nice house in a decent neighborhood. It wasn't the mansion I once dreamed of, but it was ours, and I thought that was enough. Looking back, I guess there were signs, little things that I brushed off. She started to get more bitchy, more dismissive of me. She'd blow up over small stuff, snap at me for no reason, and I noticed she was spending a lot more time on her phone. She'd hide it when I came close, and sometimes I'd catch her deleting messages or clearing her browser history. I didn't want to admit it, but I felt like she was hiding something. Still, I told myself it was just stress, or maybe she was just tired. We had no major fights, no obvious signs of trouble, so I convinced myself everything was fine. Then, about 6 months ago, things got even stranger. She started working late more often, claiming she was catching up on projects at her part-time job, even though I knew she didn't have any real work commitments. She'd come home late, smelling different, and her phone was glued to her hand. She'd get defensive when I asked about it, saying I was paranoid or that I was imagining things. But I was. I just had a gut feeling, and the more I ignored it, the worse it got. One night, I decided to do a little digging. I knew her passcode, she'd never changed it, and I just wanted to see if she was hiding anything. I wasn't trying to be a snoop, but I was desperate for answers. So I unlocked her phone when she was in the shower. That's when I saw the messages, texts, photos, all exchanged with Jake. I don't even know how to describe the feeling. It was like my stomach dropped out and my heart just stopped for a second. They'd been sneaking around for months. She was telling him she loved him, that she was tired of pretending, that she wanted to be with him. And the worst part, she was lying to me every step of the way, calling me her rock, pretending everything was fine. I saw the photos of them together, sneaking into hotels, kissing, touching. It was all there in black and white, right in my hands. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How could she do this to me, to us? I was furious, but I also felt completely crushed. I'd trusted her with everything. We had plans for the future, dreams of growing old together. And in just a matter of months, she'd thrown all that away for some meaningless sex with Jake. I couldn't believe I was that naive, that blind. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and so damn stupid for not seeing it sooner. That night I confronted her. I told her I knew. She everything at first, of course. Said I was crazy, that I was imagining things, that she loved me and it was all a mistake. But I showed her the messages, the photos, everything. Her face twisted into this bitchy, defensive expression. She claimed she was just bored, that Jake was just a friend, that I was overreacting. She said I was paranoid, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. I could see the lie in her eyes. She was lying through her teeth. That conversation did go anywhere good. She kept insisting she hadn't cheated, that I was just jealous or insecure. But I knew better. I knew I'd been played. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest, like my entire world had just shattered in a second. I was angry, yes, but mostly I was heartbroken. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this after everything we'd been through? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my mind, trying to make sense of it. I felt a mix of rage and sadness, and honestly, I felt like I'd lost a part of myself. The trust we had was gone. The love I thought was real was just a lie. And now, I was left to pick up the pieces of what was supposed to be a happy life, knowing it was all a. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I knew one thing: I had to do something. I couldn't just let her get away with this. I started to think about how to handle it, how to get revenge, how to protect what's left of my dignity. But that's a story for the next part. For now, I just want to put this out there: if you're ever in a situation where your wife or partner starts acting strange, pay attention. Because sometimes what you don't see can destroy you. After that night of discovering the messages, everything changed. I couldn't focus at work, I couldn't sleep, and the house felt colder than ever. I kept going over everything in my head, trying to figure out what I did wrong or how I missed all the signs. But the truth was, I didn't miss them, I just didn't want to see. Lisa had been lying to my face for months, and I was the idiot who didn't want to believe it. I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time I had a plan. I wanted her to admit everything outright, see her squirm, see her try to deny it again. I knew she was good at lying, but I also knew she hated being caught. So I set a trap. I told her I was going out to meet a friend for drinks, but instead, I stayed home and waited in the dark with my phone recording everything. I wanted her to slip up, to say something she couldn't take back. Sure enough, she came home late, smelling like perfume I didn't recognize. She was acting nervous, fidgeting, avoiding eye contact. I played it cool, asked her how her night went, and she tried to brush it off, saying she was just out with some. I pressed her a little, and that's when she snapped. She started with the usual denials, saying I was overreacting, that I was insecure or paranoid. But I didn't buy it. I pulled out my phone and played the recordings I'd made. Her voice was clear as day, talking to Jake about sneaking away to meet him, about how she couldn't wait to see him again. Her face turned red with anger, then with rage. She started yelling, calling me a jealous idiot, saying I was making everything up, that I was crazy for accusing her. She told me I was ruining her life, that she deserved better than me, that I was controlling. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was just staring at her, feeling a mixture of disgust and heartbreak. How could she lie so easily? How could she betray me like this after all these years? The fight got worse. She threw a glass at the wall, screaming that she was tired of pretending to be the perfect wife. She said she hated her life with me, that I was boring and controlling, that Jake was her escape. She kept lying, kept spinning stories, trying to make me doubt what I had seen. But I had enough. I told her I wanted her out of the house, that I was done playing her game. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk and said I wouldn't be able to do anything, that she'd take everything from me if I tried. That's when I realized she was serious about fighting dirty. She started throwing accusations, claiming I was cheating on her with my secretary or some other woman I barely knew. She claimed I was after her money, that I only cared about the inheritance and the house. I was stunned. I'd never cheated on her, and I had no interest in anyone else. All I wanted was honesty, and she turned around and accused me of the very thing I was trying to prove she was doing. I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her keep twisting everything, especially not after I'd seen what she was capable of. I called a lawyer the next day, started looking into my legal options. I also started gathering evidence, screenshots of the messages, recordings of her voice, anything I could use if it came to a messy divorce. I was furious, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized that this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about the fact that she was manipulative, vindictive, and completely untrustworthy. But here's the thing: I also learned that I couldn't trust her anymore, not even a little bit. Every word she said, every excuse, every lie, I saw through it. She kept claiming she loved me, that she'd never cheat, that she was just stressed. But I knew better. I knew her true colors now, and I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. I started planning how to handle the divorce, how to protect what's mine, especially my inheritance from my grandma. I was determined not to let her take that from me, not after everything. And so, I made my decision. I was done. I was going to fight for what was mine, and I was going to make damn sure she paid for what she did. The betrayal was one thing, but losing everything because of her was another. I knew this was only the beginning, but I also knew I'd come out of it stronger. I just had to stay sharp, stay calm, and not let her manipulate me again. I guess this whole thing has taught me a lot about trust, betrayal, and what people are capable of when they think they can get away with it. If you're ever in a situation where you suspect your partner is hiding something, don't ignore the signs. Because once it's out in the open, there's no going back. And trust me, the aftermath is a lot messier than you think. After I gathered enough evidence and made my decision to end things, I started to realize just how deep the rabbit hole went. Lisa wasn't just cheating, she was playing a game, twisting everything to her advantage. She knew she was caught, and instead of showing remorse or trying to fix things, she doubled down on her lies. That's when I saw her true colors, and honestly, it made me sick. But more than that, I knew I had to act fast to protect what was mine, especially the inheritance from my grandma, which she was already making claims on. Now, I'm not a stupid guy. I've always been cautious with money, but I wasn't prepared for how manipulative Lisa could be when it came to finances. She'd always acted like she cared about the family, but behind closed doors, she was planning her next move. When I confronted her about the affair, she started throwing shade about how I was just a boring, controlling husband who only cared about money. She said I was only with her for the house and the inheritance, that I saw her as some trophy wife. That was so far from the truth, but I knew she was trying to turn the tables. The next step was figuring out how to protect myself legally. I hired a lawyer, and we went through the process of getting a divorce, but I also had to be smart about the inheritance. My grandma left me a sizable amount, $500, $0, and Lisa was already claiming a share of that. I knew she'd try to manipulate the situation, especially once she realized I had evidence of her affair. I wasn't going to let her get her claws into my inheritance, not after everything. I started to dig into the legal side, how to shield my assets, how to prove that her claims were unfounded, and how to make sure she didn't take more than she deserved. Meanwhile, Lisa was getting bitchier. She'd call me names, accuse me of everything under the sun, and try to guilt-trip me into thinking I was the bad guy. She'd say things like, "You're just jealous because I found someone who actually cares," or "You're too insecure to handle the truth." She'd also lie about how she was the victim, that I was emotionally abusive, that I was trying to ruin her life. I couldn't believe how cold and calculating she was being. It was like she was trying to turn everyone against me, including friends and family, even though I didn't tell many people what was really going on. One day, she started talking about how she'd take everything I had if I didn't give her what wanted. She said she'd fight for half of everything, including my inheritance, and that she'd drag me through court if she had to. That's when I realized she was serious about playing dirty. She even hinted she accused me of cheating or being a bad husband to get more sympathy from the court. That was the moment I knew I had to be even more strategic. I wasn't just fighting for my marriage. I was fighting to keep what was legally mine. In the process, I also started to see how she manipulated others. She'd tell her friends I was controlling, jealous, and emotionally abusive, all lies, of course. I had text messages and emails from friends who expressed doubt about her stories, but I also knew that Lisa was good at spinning things her way. She'd say she was the victim, that I was trying to ruin her life, and that I was only after her money. I couldn't believe how she was turning everyone against me, but I also knew I had the evidence to prove otherwise. As I moved forward with the divorce and legal protections, I felt a mix of relief and anger. Relief because I was finally taking control of my life again, and anger because of the betrayal. I kept thinking about how much I'd trusted her, how I'd built a life with her, and how she'd thrown it all away for some meaningless affair. I also started questioning everything. Was she ever truly in love with me? Or was I just her puppet, someone to keep her comfortable while she cheated behind my back? The hardest part was watching her try to manipulate the situation. She'd cry, yell, threaten, and even try to make me feel guilty, all while secretly planning her next move. She was relentless, a true bitch in every sense of the word. I knew I couldn't let her win, especially not over my inheritance or my sanity. I had to stay focused, keep gathering evidence, and prepare for the court battles to come. Looking back, I realize I should have seen the signs earlier, but I was blinded by love or maybe just complacency. Now I see that trust is a fragile thing, easily shattered by lies and deceit. I also learned that when someone shows you who they really are, don't ignore it, because once the betrayal is out in the open, there's no going back. You either fight to protect yourself or get swallowed whole. I chose to fight. I'm not done yet, but I'm definitely done trusting her, and I'm more cautious now about everything, especially money. By the time I had everything in place, legal counsel, evidence, a clear plan, I felt like I was walking into a war zone. Lisa's behavior got even more bitter, more vindictive. She started showing up unannounced, throwing tantrums, yelling about how I was ruining her life. She claimed I was trying to take her rights away, that I was a controlling monster. But the truth was, I was just trying to protect what was mine: inheritance, my reputation, my sanity. She began making a scene at home, calling me every name in the book, crying crocodile tears, and trying to guilt-trip me into backing down. She'd say things like, "You're just jealous because Jake doesn't want you anymore," or "You're so insecure that you think I'd cheat on you for no reason." She even accused me of cheating, which was laughable. I had been faithful, but she was twisting everything to make herself look innocent. It was classic manipulation, and I saw right through it. At the same time, she ramped up her efforts to spin her version of events to friends and family. She told everyone I was a terrible husband, that I was emotionally abusive, that I was trying to control her. She painted herself as the victim, and I was the villain. I had messages from mutual friends expressing concern, but I also knew Lisa was good at twisting stories. She tell people I was paranoid or that I was trying to keep her from her happiness. I didn't bother arguing anymore. I knew the truth, and I had the evidence to back it up. Meanwhile, I kept working on my legal strategy. I wanted to make sure that she couldn't just walk away with a share of my inheritance or my assets. I hired a forensic accountant to trace the money, and I started preparing documents to prove that her claims were unfounded. I also had to consider how to protect the estate I'd inherited from my grandma. That $500, $0 wasn't just a number. It was a symbol of her love, and I wasn't about to let Lisa take that away from me. One day, she escalated things even further. She showed up at my office, screaming and crying, claiming I was trying to ruin her life. She demanded I give her half of everything, including my inheritance. She even threatened to take me to court over it. I was furious but kept my composure. I told her she had no legal right to claim my inheritance, especially since I had all the evidence that she was cheating and manipulating me. I also made it clear that I was prepared to fight her in court if necessary. That's when I realized she wasn't just after money, she was after total control. She wanted to ruin me financially, emotionally, and socially. She didn't care about the marriage, only her own selfish needs. It made me sick thinking about how much she lied, how she played the victim when she was the one cheating and scheming all along. But I refused to let her manipulate me anymore. I was done being the good guy in her game. I started to build my case, gathering every piece of evidence I could find: texts, emails, witness statements, anything that could show her true intentions. I also started documenting her behavior, her threats, her lies. I knew she'd try to spin things in court, but I had my proof. I knew I wasn't just fighting for my money, I was fighting for my dignity. Throughout all this, I was feeling of emotions. The betrayal hurt the most, seeing the woman I loved, the woman I thought was my partner, turn into someone so cold and manipulative. I felt anger, yes, but also sadness. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I was so blind to her true nature. But deep down, I knew I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her win, not after everything. In some ways, I felt relieved that I was finally taking control. For years, I'd been the trusting husband, the one who believed in loyalty and honesty. Now I saw that sometimes people are capable of the worst things, and trust can be a dangerous thing. I realized I'd wasted too much time trying to keep everything perfect, when in reality I needed to protect myself first. So I stayed the course, preparing for the inevitable court battles, making sure my legal rights were protected and keeping my head clear. I knew Lisa was going to fight dirty, but I had a plan. I just had to hold on and keep my focus. This wasn't over yet. I knew that, and I was ready to see it through. Because at the end of the day, I wasn't just fighting for my money. I was fighting for my life, my sanity, and my dignity. The court date was set, and I knew Lisa was going to pull out all the stops to try and turn everything against me. She was already painting herself as the victim, claiming I was emotionally abusive and that I'd been controlling her for years. I could see right through her lies, but I also knew the court would have to see the evidence. That's why I doubled down on gathering every piece of proof I could find: texts, emails, witness statements, even security footage from the house that showed her sneaking around. I wanted to make sure there was no way she could spin her story to win. When the day finally arrived, I was nervous but determined. I sat in that courtroom knowing I had the truth on my side. Lisa showed up looking bitchy as ever, dressed to look innocent but with that sneer that told me she knew she was about to lose. She tried to act like she was the wronged wife, crying fake tears, claiming I'd been abusive and manipulative. Her lawyer was doing the same, trying to argue that she deserved half of everything, including my inheritance. But I had my own lawyer and I was ready. I presented my evidence: screenshots of her messages with Jake, recordings of her admitting to the affair, witness statements from friends who saw her behavior. I made it clear she'd lied to me, cheated, and manipulated her way into my life and finances. I argued that her claims to half of my inheritance were completely unfounded, especially since she'd been caught cheating and lying for months. I pointed out that I had kept detailed records of all financial transactions, including the inheritance, which I had inherited outright from my grandma. The judge listened carefully, asked questions, and seemed to understand the situation. I could see Lisa's lawyer was scrambling, trying to find a way to spin her story, but I knew I'd done everything by the book. I felt a small sense of victory when the judge nodded and looked at the evidence I presented. It was like a weight had been lifted, knowing I'd done everything I could to fight for what's rightfully mine. But the real shock came when Lisa's true colors finally showed. During her testimony, she started crying again, claiming I was a terrible husband, controlling, emotionally abusive, and that she only cheated because she was desperate and unhappy. She even tried to blame me for her affair, saying I was never there for her emotionally. I couldn't believe how cold and manipulative she was being. She was trying to turn everyone against me, but I had the facts. She was caught red-handed and everyone knew it. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. She awarded me full custody of the house, which I'd already moved out of, and dismissed her claims to half of my inheritance. The judge made it clear that her infidelity and lies had severely damaged her credibility, and that I had acted in good faith to protect my assets. I felt a mix of relief and anger: relief that justice was somewhat served, but anger that I'd had to go. Through all this at all, after the court, Lisa stormed out, furious and screaming that she'd fight me in court again, that I'd never get away with this. But I knew she was just blowing hot air. I'd won the battle, but I also knew the war wasn't over yet. She'd try to make my life hell, I was sure of that. Yet I also felt a strange sense of closure. I'd finally taken control and fought back against her manipulations. The aftermath was a whirlwind of legal filings, confrontations, and the slow process of rebuilding my life. I moved out of the house, started fresh, and focused on healing. I also made sure to cut ties with anyone who believed her lies or enabled her. The betrayal had cut deep, but I realized I was stronger than I thought. I learned that sometimes life throws you into the fire, and all you can do is stand your ground and fight your way out. Looking back, I see that this experience changed me. I became more guarded, more aware of who I trust, but I also learned that justice can be found, even when the odds seem stacked against you. I wish I could say I'm over it now, but I'm not. Still, I know I'm better off without her, and I'm proud that I stood up for myself. If there's one thing I want others to take from this, it's that betrayal hurts like hell, but don't ever let it define you. Fight for what's yours and never let anyone manipulate or destroy you. That's what I'm doing now, building a new life, one step at a time. After everything settled, the court ruling, the legal battles, Lisa's final attempts to manipulate and smear my name, I realized I was finally free. The house was sold off to cover debts and legal fees, and I moved into a small apartment nearby. It wasn't what I envisioned for my life, but it was mine, and I was determined to rebuild from the wreckage. The inheritance from my grandma, which Lisa had tried to claim, was finally secured, and I made sure to keep it completely separate from any future dealings with her. I learned a lot about trust, betrayal, and the importance of protecting what's yours. The hardest part was the emotional fallout. I felt like I'd lost part of myself during this ordeal. Naive trust, the love I thought I had. But I also gained a clearer perspective. I saw how manipulative some people can be when they think they can get away with it. I became more cautious, more aware of red flags, and more determined not to let anyone take advantage of me again. I also realized that forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the anger and bitterness that can eat you alive. I've started focusing on myself, rebuilding my confidence and reconnecting with friends I'd neglected during the chaos. I've also learned to be more vigilant about my finances. Never again will I be so blind to what's happening around me. It's not just about money, it's about self-respect and knowing your worth. I don't regret fighting for what's mine because I know I did everything I could to stand my ground. Looking back, I see that I was lucky in some ways. I had the evidence, the legal support, and most importantly, the strength to face the truth head-on. It was a brutal lesson, but one I needed to learn. If I could give advice to anyone who finds themselves in a similar situation, it's this: trust your instincts, document everything, and don't be afraid to fight for what's yours. People can surprise you in some cases with the worst possible surprises, but you're stronger than you think, and sometimes the only way to reclaim your life is to stand up and say, enough. Now I'm focused on moving forward. I still have scars, but they remind me of what I survived and what I refuse to tolerate anymore. I don't hate Lisa. I pity her honestly. She's the one who lost her integrity, her dignity, and maybe even her soul. I've learned that revenge isn't about hurting someone back. It's about reclaiming your power and making sure you never let anyone strip that from you again. So that's my story. It's been a hell of a ride, but I'm finally in control. I've learned that life can be unpredictable, cruel even, but resilience and integrity matter more than anything. I'll keep building my new life, step by step, and I'll never let betrayal define me. Because at the end of the day, the only person responsible for your happiness and peace of mind is you. And I intend to hold on to that, strong, steady, and unbreakable.